Welcome to a Friday edition of Freshly Pressed and Smooth 98.1. It's the 5th of August, and we have some stories to be sharing with you across our various, newspaper dailies in Nigeria. We have carefully, picked some of the headlines for you this morning, and we'll crave your indulgence to be part of the show, sending messages to us on 0809 on WhatsApp or streaming live on YouTube, Smooth 981 FM Lagos. Also, tweet us at Smooth91 FM. We have two guests for you this morning. But first, my name is Victor Pepple. Lakule is in the studio with us for a Friday. Good morning, Lakule.
Hi, morning Lagos, morning Victor. It's good to be here on Friday.
Thank you very much for coming in. And we have Mr. C.
Good morning, Victor. Good morning, Lakale. Good morning, Lagos. And here's to the weekend.
All right, this morning we'll get straight into it, beginning from the Punch newspaper today. In the Punch newspaper, Vice President Yemi Oshibajo calls on, local arm production key to tackling insecurity. This is credited to the Vice President, who is making a case for local production of military hardware, especially armament. Lakule, let's begin with you. When you saw this story, what crossed your mind, what caught your attention, and what's the meat of all of this for you?
This story is neither here nor there for me as a troll, but when you look at everything that we do in Nigeria, sometimes you ask yourself, why are we where we are? And then you can then look at these things and you can understand how. Okay, so the Defense Industrial Corporation of Nigeria was set up by a decree or by Act of Parliament in 1964 to manufacture small arms, motorized armed vehicles and stuff like that for the Nigerian military as at then. So if that's like almost 50 years ago, so if now 2022 we're still talking about local production, what have we done with the last 50 years of the existence of this corporation? So the corporation somehow between 64 and 70 was living up to that vision, and somewhere after the Civil War they said that okay, because we're now at peace, blah blah blah, they diverted their infrastructure into building water pumps, materials like things that it can be used locally for other things, not even in the military.
Sorry.
This is on the website of the Defense Ministry of Nigeria.
Are you saying that?
So,
sorry, we had, for instance, I want to call it a production site where some of these, armaments were produced. We turned them to.
Let me read verbatim what's on the website. So
wow.
It's not that I'm manufacturing it. It says here that so after the war in 1970. The lucrative arms market of Daikon ended. Therefore, in order to remain in business, Daikon decided to use its equipment to produce civilian items like rural water supply equipment, industrial spare parts, and furniture for sale to the public. This is on the Ministry of Defense website this morning. Okay, so when you hear that, and then 50 years after, you're asking, in fact, there was a time in the 1980s, the Defense Industrial Corporation was more popular for the football team that he had than for what it was meant to do. Okay, so when you look at it from that perspective, and then the idea that, like I always say, a lot of things that happen to us today were ideas or mistakes or something that was supposed to be temporary sometime in our past. And some people are feeding fat on that idea, so they sustain it. You can talk about your subsidy, you can talk about our education, you can talk about everything. You will see that there is an idea somewhere that's supposed to be a temporary measure to bridge a gap that has now, in quote, become permanent and at a detriment to development of local. You can see it in almost every aspect of our life, and that is what this was. So this report in itself, what shocks me is the fact that we are not even producing anything locally for enough. Now, even now, if the military wants to buy vehicles, you hear us talking about going to buy from Innocent. And meanwhile, we have set up Daikon many years ago that should have developed capacity in those years to be able to do some of these things that would have cost us less.
Okay, Mr. C, I just want to come to you quickly. Still from the Punch, more states to procure AK-47 as insecurity worsens. Yesterday, the Benue State governor said he would legally procure AK-47 rifles for security outfits and community volunteer guards in Benue State. We saw the call to arm oneself by governors. They're taking it a step further by buying these arms for communities and volunteers in their various states. What do you make of this?
Okay, thank you, Victor. So I'm going to start off this way. Weapons and the licensing of weapons can be found on the exclusive list of the Constitution. So what that means to our listeners is that only the federal government can issue licenses for firearms. That's the starting point.
Mm.
Now, these governments that are buying weapons, they intend to buy weapons for guards employed by the state, are doing this in response to the never-ending violence being perpetrated in their various states. And it is instructive that even after they buy these weapons, they still need to apply for licenses so that the people, the eventual beneficiaries, can use those weapons lawfully. Now, these licenses, they have to apply through the Office of the National Security Advisor. Now, it's instructive that for say the last 3 or 4 years, there's been an increased clamor for the creation of state police. Now, why is that? Why is there that clamor? Because the existing Nigerian police force has proven conclusively that it is incapable of effectively policing the Nigerian state. Now, the constitutional obligation for policing Nigeria's internal space rests solely with the Nigerian police force. But because of their ineffectiveness, we've now seen the military deployed in at least 24 to 25 states of the Federation conducting different military operations. Now, what that means is the army is already stretched thin across the country. Same thing applies to the Navy. So, and in a lot of these attacks, the victims, the survivors have consistently said that for the duration of those attacks, the police was nowhere to be seen. Now, if these community guards, if these state guards were on the scene, maybe they'll put up more of a fight, because we must also remember that apart from the numbers, the Nigerian police force is poorly motivated at this point in time. They're not properly funded and they're not properly equipped.
All right, still on this, Lakunle, I just want to throw this in. Ondo, Ekiti, Oshun, and Zamfara have indicated interest to do same in their domain. Shouldn't we, or shouldn't the governors buy these arms, AK-47s, and support the police in their various states rather than create some of these, groups and then buy arms for them?
So let me start off.
Okay, okay.
The Nigerian police force is under the control of the IGP, who reports directly to the
But
president.
we donate vehicles to the police.
Yeah, we donate vehicles to them. But here's the thing: if you want this thing effectively nipped in the bud, right, you must have guards who report to you directly on the ground. Guards who are familiar with the terrain of the state. Because let's not forget, the Nigerian police force regularly deploys and moves around as policemen. So you could find policemen in Lagos who do not know the terrain.
Now I ask this question because many times the police have a process. You account for the rifle given to you, and they complain. The military, we don't have sophisticated weapons, and the governors are buying quote unquote AK-47 for community volunteers, not as trained and skilled as our military or the police.
So my own point comes back to the same thing I've always said about our policing. We have done central policing for 100 years. We are here where we are today. Everybody says it is not adequate. There are only 350,000 policemen in Nigeria today, according
and
to
most
themselves.
of them are drivers in Lagos here for VIPs.
Just a minute. There are only 350,000 of them. The 350,000 alone is not even enough to cover Niger State. We look at the landmass that Niger State is. So as long as we have that, see, the governors, they have what they call the Southern Governors Forum, Northern Governors Forum, Progressive Governors Forum, Nigerian Governors Forum. They have all forms of forums. What do they discuss in that place? These ones are now grandstanding in the news that they want to buy, they want to buy, they want to buy. They have control of their House of Assemblies. They have control of their senators and House of Rep. Go and change what is in the Constitution so that we can have a decentralized policing system.
Okay.
That is the minimum that we expect of them. Not all this. Now, when you give these guns to these people, how do you control them? Amotekun in the southwest, they don't have this control of guns. We've had reports of harassment, illegal killings from those people. Now you now hand them guns. What are we going to get?
All right, Mr. C, quickly, you want to add?
Very quickly, policing all over the world is local. And when the British were colonial masters, the police in Nigeria at that point in time were local. So they were constituted of members of that particular locality. So this idea of a centralized police force is not working. We need to go back to the basics.
No, but perhaps after the Civil War, where a lot of people felt for unity's sake, then we need to, because it was similar with NYSC, we need to post people from Bauchi to Akwa Ibom and all of that for unity. We needed to unify the country at that time.
Okay, Victor, fine. Even if that was the case, right now we need to go back. We need to bring back that element of local policing, because nobody will police a neighborhood better than someone who grew up in that neighborhood.
Okay, quickly, let's keep it going. We can't just stay here. There are other stories from the Guardian newspaper. Stop night visits to judges' residences. Supreme Court Justice tells government officials. Now, Supreme Court Justice Iyan Okoro has said the judiciary will only function effectively when it is devoid of state interference, including visits to the residence of several judges to curry favor, and they go at night nicodemously.
You know the funny thing about this is when I saw the story, the first thing that came to my mind is that this judge, God bless her, is actually sending messages to some people who have actually come to visit her at home. I mean, that's why she would have said it, and it must have been in the interest of a case where those who had gone to visit her would have may have thought that they would lose the case in her court. You get? So he's sending a message to them, and it's good that he's making the news. We have seen cases in this country that we have seen instances in this country that, particularly with the governors who would call newsmen, buy a few cars, and they have the judges line up and say they are donating cars to judges. There are subtle and indirect bribes to the judiciary. The judiciary is supposed to be the third arm of government, it's supposed to be independent of the executive. They're supposed to be a first part of the first line of whatever. The independence is supposed to include that the judiciary should fund itself in its own way. And also to the extent that now when you are choosing a chief judge, it is the governor who approves the chief judge. Those are the kind of things that you need to take away, so that we can have an independent judicial system. So long as those things are there. Growing up, I had friends whose parents were judges. We only see them. We used to say it as we are now older, that do you remember that we only see your dad maybe twice or three times a year, and we're on festival days, maybe on either Kabir, Christmas Day. Other days we don't see them. But here we are today, we see judges, we go to the same parties, they sit next to you. You see them everywhere. They are allowed like every other normal common Nigerian that we all are. In those days, we just hear their names. We don't see them. And we've demystified that. And so there's no how we are able to say that every pronouncement from any court today is fair, because of these things that we see happen. The government does its own, the people do their own, and the institution has been suppressed, that you have people go to invade judges' houses, the ones that they cannot bribe, they invade their houses to strike fear in their minds and stuff. It needs to end. We need to have an independent judicial system. Otherwise, what's the recourse for the common man when he's seeking justice?
Let's take a break. When we come back, more stories for you. Keep the messages coming in on WhatsApp 0809-444-0981.
Ray, and you're listening to Smooth 98.1. Don't go anywhere.
Countless semesters burns the midnight candle, but you made it. And now it's time for you to show the world what you've got. The First Bank Nigeria
APC will
2022
come back
Graduate
to
Recruitment
you
Trainee
with
Program is
APC.
on. It's designed to train the next generation bankers and leaders. So, are you innovative and ready to contribute to the financial marketplace of the future? Want to develop exceptional corporate skills? Then this is it.
Somebody has gone to visit that woman at home. That's why. That's why she
But they
came
always
to court.
visit judges now.
Somebody has gone to visit that woman at home to ask for a favor in a case. That's why she said it openly.
One at who's that?
Justice Nyango Koro. He said people should stop visiting judges at home at night. Somebody has gone to offer a bribe at home now. That's why. Just pass the message to them. I'm sure the person was even there when she said it.
Stay tuned, everyone. Don't even think about touching that dial.
Thank you very much. You're listening to Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1. My name is Victor Pepper. We have Lakunle in the studio as well as Mr. C. We take it over to your messages on WhatsApp very quickly. Austin is saying, Nigerian government were unable to fight insecurity with foreign sophisticated weapons. Our security officers always complain about more sophisticated weapons the bandits are using. Now the government wants to manufacture their weapons locally. Nigerians just know that things are falling apart. He continues, he says that state governors want to buy AK-47 to defend their states. They are simply indirectly informing us that things have gotten out of hands. Prepare yourselves for war. Yinka Bolu, if we have states where security outfits have been set up, that means we have willing people to join the police. So why not increase the number in the police force? I'm just trying to, rephrase for him. Proven most effective ways to fight insecurity is having increased number of security personnel. Why are we not doing this? So funny that you have a state whose governor is finding it hard to pay salaries and yet wants to buy AK-47 rifles.
That's very profound.
Fabian from Fabian here in Lagos. I wonder why Saridokuba and others alike show rocket launchers and other weapons, yet citizens cannot lawfully get arms to protect themselves. On a lighter note, thank God for the present weather in Lagos. I don't know where that came from. But the British used a northern army to control the south and a largely Fulani army to control the Kanaris and the Hausas. The problem with state policing is that the enforcers can easily sympathize with the agitation of their people. I agree with Victor. What we need is a well-equipped security outfit and mercenaries. B from Lekki. Let's take it over to This Day newspaper and discuss a bit of politics. APC names Lalong as DG of Tinubu campaign organization, and the chairman of the party, Abdullahi Adamu, announced to newsmen shortly after meeting President Buhari at the State House in Abuja, Mr. C. Now, Nigerians complained about a Muslim ticket. Borno State former governor and former governor of Lagos State, both Muslims. Now the APC has chosen the DG of the campaign council, a Christian from Plateau State, and to deputize him is the former governor of Edo State and also former party chairman of the APC. He's also a Christian. So will this assuage the emotions of some Nigerians who felt bad about the APC going with a Muslim ticket now that they've made up with a Christian run campaign organization?
Okay, thank you, Victor. So good luck to the APC with the appointments. Now, I think Nigerians have gone about this the wrong way. Yes, it is true that for most of our history, there's been an unwritten rule that power is rotated or shared between the two major religious faiths, with the exception of the military regime in 1983 to 1985. But given that, as said, what we should be focusing on are issues. For example, do we all know the position of the major candidates on immigration, on Africa, on global world policy? Do we know their positions on inflation? Do we know their positions on the general poverty in Nigeria? Do we know their positions on fully deregulating the power industry? Do we know their positions on fuel subsidy, whether they're going to remove it or not?
Education, don't leave the house.
No, I'm getting there. Do we know their position on health? Do we know their position on education? Do we know their positions on reversing the migration that is going on now? We don't know any of these things, or we don't know most of them, or some of them, and we're focusing on the faith of the candidates. Yes, every candidate has the right to choose who is going to run with. It's his prerogative. He's done that. Stop majoring in the minors. Sit these guys down and extract from them their positions on these topical issues. And when you do that, you're then better informed so that come election day next year, you can make the proper decision.
All right. Luckily, to also discuss this, but let's add this from Daily Trust. PDP crisis, Atiku Wike meet in Abuja. Hopefully, they're able to resolve their internal squabbles there. Apparently, it looks like Governor Wike of Rivers State is angry that he wasn't picked as running mate to Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. You want to touch on this, and quickly I also add the APC chose Festus Keyamo as spokesperson. There are reports that Dino Melaye will also be heading the campaign organization, communications arm for the Atiku campaigns. I can't imagine a debate between the two spokespersons of the major political parties in Nigeria, Festus Keyamo for APC and Dino Melaye of the PDP. It would just be a laughing, luckily.
So let's start from the very top. I think that Governor Wike is just acting out like a child whose toy was taken away from him. Going into that contest, he knew there were going to be only two possible outcomes: I win or I lose. And unfortunately, he did not win. For someone at his level, one would imagine that he should have taken it on his chin and continue to be a loyal party man that he's been. Where understandably that in the last 7 years, like they say, he's been the stronghold and the mainstay of the PDP in Nigeria. It's committed funds to sustain the party nationwide and all that. And of course, in politics, you know that when you do that, you always want to have a say in everything that happens. So what Atiku also and what Atiku Abubakar needs to do now is to assure him of that, or whatever guarantees or whatever is going to give in return for his sustained loyalty to the party. It's an internal issue, and I think that, like Mr. C just said, we should concentrate more on the major issues that affect all of us on the daily basis: education, health, security, immigration, and all that. And then quickly to the last matter that you brought up. I'm not a fan of either of the two of them, yeah, but I would rather listen to Keyamo than listen to
Dino
Melaye. And this hasn't got anything to do with both of them, but because of what I've seen of the two of them, Keyamo at least tries to put issues on the front burner. The other man thinks that everything is about comedy, and it's so unfortunate that we've had him as the Senator of the Federal Republic, and it breaks my heart every time that when you are asked to mention names of people who's been in position of governance, in positions to change or help influence things in this country, and his name comes up. And I think that maybe the PDP doesn't think that this is something that the campaign means anything. That's why they are putting him forward.
No, of course it does.
Because they don't think that the campaign means anything. What I mean by that is that they think that everybody's made up their mind who they are going to vote for anyway. That's why they are putting it there. Because if they consider it a serious position, they would have put somebody who can speak, who can appeal to people's mind, people's reasoning into that position.
Well, until he begins the job, then we'll have this conversation again.
Yeah, well, maybe when he does that and he does something different from what we know.
Interesting times ahead, but quickly, Guardian newspaper, and we wrap up here. Worsens murder. Uduak Akpan backs death sentence by hanging.
Okay, thank you, Victor. And our thoughts continue to go out to the family of the late Ini Umoran, who was viciously and unlawfully killed by Uduak Akpan. Now, he's had his day in court. He's had all the opportunity to present whatever evidence he possessed to prove that he did not commit the crime. Unfortunately for him, the prosecution was able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he unlawfully not only raped her but killed her. and he accordingly got the death sentence. So all that is left now is he has the right to appeal through the Court of Appeal and ultimately the Supreme Court. Then he has one final right of appeal. He will appeal for the prerogative of mercy to be exercised in his favor, and that goes to the state governor. So he may not be executed, at least for the next 3 or 4 years. So we'll see what happens, and we'll take it from there.
All right, quickly, we'll just look through some of your messages. Quickly, we'll look at some of your messages beginning on YouTube. Anthony Alao is saying Union Daikon Salt is a partnership between Defense Industries Company and a Brazilian core. And Uche Ibiabuchi is saying choosing Christian spokespersons may not really douse any tempo. Will they be part of policy making or governance after election? That is a major issue. All right. Quickly, let's look at the messages again on WhatsApp. Zen is saying the state governors are only trying to buy weapons to prevent the political class and intimidate others. Okay, I don't get that, but Mr. C, calm down. A certain VP candidate was asked about how they intend to solve insecurity, and he said, don't worry, we have the solution. Again, he said, trust me, we have the solution. So there you have it, trust. Ken is saying, Wike, the wimpy kid, has been given a cookie. He's now all smiles. Let's move on. People should be nice to a sitting governor. It's a shame that the average Nigerian is primarily concerned with the faith of our leaders. Religion doesn't run economies. Market forces do. Thank you, Mr. C, for bringing this up. And Ian is saying, Festus Keyamo and Dino have had a debate before. It was very interesting, very comical as well. I would like to see another. And that's what I was saying to Lakule. Interesting times. I can't wait for both of them to debate the issues going on in Nigeria. How can Nigerians make political office holders to keep to their manifestos? PMB made many to support him in 2015 and has done almost nothing with it. How are we sure the current chasers of Aso Rock won't go the way of PMB without consequences? Kunle Bangboye in Ifako. Both of them, Dino and Keyamo, cannot make sense to Nigerians. No name to that message. And final one we can take is, I like the way the media is ignoring, okay, I'm sure you just tuned in today because I think that was talked about yesterday. It's talking about the vehicles purchase for Niger. We did talk about that yesterday. Festus Keyamo will look you in the face and lie. Dino did better than a lot of senators in the assembly. Okay, Emeka is the one who sent that message across, but we need to go. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Luckily, I appreciate your coming, Mr. C. Thank you very much as well. We look forward to more conversations next week. The show will return next week at 7:30 on Monday. My name is Victor Pepple. Let's do this again next week, Monday at 7:30. Have a good weekend.
First bang.
All politicians tell lies.